Sheriff, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sean. It's always a pleasure.
So last fall, I had the opportunity to visit you and your officers, go down to the border. It was a pretty scary sight, what was happening at the border. The wall was being sold off. No work was being done. I mean, I was blown away to see it firsthand. So let me start by just asking, what has changed in the last 6 months?
Well, again, thanks for having me on, Sean. And I will say this, we were abandoned along with many other border counties. And I'll be honest with you, beyond into the country when it comes to border security, securing this border and ensuring that there's consequences. And that's not an opinion by me. It's a fact. You look at the historical numbers. What we saw in this county was deadly. It was tragic. And it's sad to say it changed who we were when it comes to our quality of life. Where we're at today is like somebody pulled a switch. President Trump's priorities, which wasn't in the last administration, was to secure this border, add consequences for those that break our international laws and come into our country illegally. And we've seen the difference. We went from thousands a day to double digits. I mean, it's incredible what's going on. Do we still have some smuggling? Do we still have pursuits? Yes, but nothing to the magnitude. In fact, out of my 4 decades, Sean, this is probably the best I've ever seen it.
Wow. So just to give people a perspective, what was it that you guys faced in prior to January in terms of human smuggling, drugs? What was it that the folks in Cochise County faced the biggest threat from?
Again, something I had never even seen. And again, I've worked this county, like I said, 41 years in one capacity or another. And I'll tell you, what I saw was international smuggling being exploited on the back of America. We had 1,500 estimated smuggler drivers driving from all over the country. 2 former cops, for example, one out of Chicago, one out of Tucson, Arizona, came to Cochise County to partner with the criminal cartels, pick up drugs, pick up people, you name it, and drive out of the county at 100 miles an hour because that's what they were instructed to do. If they were tried to stop, if law enforcement tried to stop them, it took off again in deadly speeds. And that's where a lot of our death came from. Endangered our communities. I mean, our public was amazing in support of law enforcement down here because they knew we were doing the best we could. Put that in perspective, in 3 years, Sean, we booked over 4,100 people in my county jails. We had 3 of them in this county for border-related crimes, not immigration, border-related, state-related crimes, up to double-digit murders. So it gives you the magnitude of something that, incredibly, I couldn't even imagine and would never have predicted. Put that in perspective for the average person listening to you today, for the viewers. On a bad year in Cochise County for border-related crimes, we hit 10% of our jail population was border-related. Under the Biden administration, we hit up to 44% of all the people in my jail were border-related. That shows you how bad this got down here. We did everything we can, working with our county attorney, our law enforcement, state, local, and federal, to do what we could. We never left the pressure off and never let the cartels know that, because we enforced the rule of law. And so we held those gates closed the best we could.
All right, guys, I hate to interrupt this conversation, but if you're loving the Sean Spicer Show, maybe you want something to snack on, join me in getting a great snack in masa chips. These things are unbelievable. No seed oils, just 3 ingredients. And I'm telling you, they've got a ton of great flavors. Original, blue, lime, habanero. Oh, it's amazing. Every one of them is great. You can dip them. They're amazing. Go to masachips.com/Sean, SEAN, masachips.com/Sean. Use code word Sean, spelled the right way, SEAN, to get 25% off. All right, back to this great conversation. And remember, if you're watching the Sean Spicer Show, the official chip, masachips.com/Sean, code word Sean. So when you talk about the cartels, I always got the feeling that under the 4 years of Biden, they knew that they weren't going to get prosecuted or stopped and that they could kind of just send people over the border. Has that signal gotten through, meaning it's not just the physical barriers that maybe have changed, but the psychological barriers, that it's not worth it anymore? Is that message getting through?
Oh, 100%. And it's proven through the action at the border. I mean, when you look at state, local, and federal law enforcement has been united under this administration to work together. And that's something I don't understand when I see sanctuary cities or I see mayors or governors or whoever it may be that come out and say, well, no, we don't support ICE. We don't support this administration. Well, that's on you. You weren't elected to support President Trump. You were elected to take care of your people and protect them. under your oath of office. And to see what's going on in this country just scares the heck out of me because, again, I don't care if it's FBI, ATF, state police, another sheriff calls me and says, or ICE, hey, sheriff, we need to go pick up this fugitive. Let's go get him. And to change our paradigm now and say, no, we're not going to work with ICE, all you're doing is setting your community up for a tragedy.
You said the word abandon. How has that changed? So, like, describe the relationship with maybe the feds before January 20th and the relationship after January 20th.
Sean, we had no relationship with this past administration. President Biden was the first president in modern day time that would not meet with America's sheriffs. That's unheard of. The 3,000 sheriffs and the 4 associations that represent sheriffs in this country tried their darndest to get this president to meet with us. I met with members of the White House, expressed my dissatisfaction, even showed the letters of invite, and they turned their back on us. So that tells you they had no intent to work with us, and that's why I call it intellectual avoidance and abandonment with intended consequences. The intended consequences is tragedy in this country right now when you see people being killed by those who came across the border illegally and were allowed to stay in these sanctuary cities. Shame on those mayors, shame on those governors, and shame on politics for allowing that to happen.
You know, when I visited you and your team, the wall, there were pieces of it just lying on the ground. And potentially being sold off, whatever. Has the physical nature of a barrier been resurrected? Like, are you guys, is it now being rebuilt? Is porous? Like, how does the physical piece of our border security look now, in the past 6 months?
Well, there's enhancements coming. I mean, just west of me, I know they're going to start building the physical barrier again. Our county, we're subject to that too, I've been told. So there's movement being made by this president to finish the physical barrier where applicable, work with technology, and work again to make sure this is all done. Something that's important to put out, Sean, is when President Biden took over, he declared the Southwest border a non-emergency, which shut down all the funding, the projects, everything. It froze in time. So that stuff a lot of the material sat down there, which is really, what are you going to do it for? It's pillars full of cement designed for the physical barrier that's currently in place. Sat there for 3.5 years, up to the last 6 months of President Biden being in office. He started moving the rest of that material. More, I got called from mayors and others saying, hey, Sheriff, this is what's going on. We checked into it. President Biden was taking all that material and was selling it pennies to the dollar. What that means is he's forcing this new administration, President Trump, to go out and buy it all new. It puts an expense tag, not on President Trump. It puts it on the American people. Instead of leaving it there for what it was designed to do, because he didn't have the will to secure it, he actually cost the taxpayers a lot of money because Trump has to now go back and get all that material and build it again. What a shame.
That is, I mean, honestly, it's one thing not to do it and to enforce policy, but we're now literally going to have to pay for it. So is any of it salvageable, or are you guys actually going to have to go out and see new stuff come in to make that physical barrier present again?
What's left can be used, but they're going to have to make more. There's no doubt about it. What a waste, again, a waste of taxpayers' money based on political ideologies and lack of will. And that's what's most frustrating about it. Congress knew about this, Sean, and I'm going to call it on this one. I've said it in the previous 4 years. I'm going to say it again. 51% of Congress, where are you? You knew that was being sold off down here. We called the congressional offices and they said, oh, yeah, we know what's going on. Why aren't you telling the American people? Why are you not rallying your sheriffs, your mayors, and others that care about border security? They could have brought this to attention. Again, where is Congress? Even now, where is Congress? We have the opportunity to change and solidify, put some teeth in some of our immigration laws, our border security laws. 51% has chose not to sit back. And I blame both parties on that one. We need to unite this country when it comes to border security and protecting our communities.
The threats that you guys face, if I recall, is a lot of smuggling. And that's what I found so fascinating, because I think you and I were talking, or it was one of your deputies. And what I found fascinating for the first time ever, and I'm a guy who I think covers this pretty often, but we're talking about how in so many communities, these smuggled individuals are doing things like check cashing or working in restaurants, whatever. And I thought to myself, I had no idea that this was happening in communities around the country.
And that's the thing, the enterprises through the cartels and the illegals that are coming across the border. and I got to preface this with you, Sean. Think about it. Over the last 4 years, you could have come in the country, did a high five, and you're allowed to stay here. Catch and release. Well framed in this country under President Biden. So the ones that the gotaways, the ones that had to be smuggled in the country, couldn't do that because of their criminal past, their aggravated deportees, or they're from countries of interest. 2.2 million. Think about that. They came in this country not to find the American dream. They came in this country to set up criminal enterprises, what you're talking about right there. Just last year alone in our border operation, which is a regional border operations center hosted by the Cochise County Sheriff's Office, myself and my team, state, local, and federal working here, we did 54, I believe it was 55 search warrants last year, border-related crimes in Cochise County and all the way up to Phoenix and beyond, trying to go after those enterprises because they're not stopping in my county, not with me as sheriff. They're heading out of here, but we're chasing their tails. We're going to put them and hold them accountable. We're on some huge cases this year in 2025. I'm getting a brief at 8 o'clock this morning here on a big case we're working on. Again, we're going to continue to go after the cartels because what they're doing in this country is not the American dream.
But for people out there who hear the media say, Sheriff, if you're not someone who's committed a crime, why are you being deported? What do you think of those folks? I mean, like, what's your response? Because I look and go, okay, most of these people broke the law coming into the country, but to your point about these other folks, what do we need to know about who they are?
Well, let's look at something first of all. This nation was built on the rule of law. Democracy, that the people put these laws in place. If you don't like the laws, change them. That's why I'm coming back on Congress. But I think we need to get some balance within our immigration laws. And there's got to be some steadfast. President Trump did not create the problem with the 2.2 million gotaways, with the catch and release program over the last 4 years, which just magnified the problem even worse. But he's taken the heat on it because he's trying to do what his oath says, and that is enforce the rule of law. People that came in the country illegally need to make it right. You just can't stay here. The ones that have been here 20, 40, 50 years, LA called me the other day, been here 60 years. There's got to be some resolutions in there. And that's where Congress comes into play because they've established 60 years here in the country. Does it make it right? No, but we got to make it right somehow. And that's where Congress was elected to do. What this administration is focused on, Sean, is the worst of the worst. The ones the gotaways, the ones that are in this country that are committing crimes, the ones that came in this country illegally, or even here on a temporary visa until their case is adjudicated and they're committing crimes, they need to go. I'll be the first to say that. These people talk all the time that, hey, that's not right. Well, then make them your neighbor and see what you think about that. Bottom line is they're not here to fulfill the American dream.
But I think there's, in my mind, at least maybe four groups. You've got what we call DACA folks, people who are brought in as children. And that's obviously, I know the phrase, through no fault of their own. Then you've got people who came here illegally, right? But maybe haven't committed a crime, but have been here a while, haven't committed another crime. And then you've got the big criminals who are whatever. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this is because this is my fourth bucket. They're between number 2 and number 4, which is people who came in here illegally, but are part of some sort of greater criminal cartel crime process. Is that how many roughly do you think that is? And what are those people doing?
Well, you got 2.2 million over the Biden administration that came in this country illegally. Every one of them that did this, that are involved in, majority of those are, I promise you, commit to you in the fact that just based on the fact they could have just come in illegally, got a catch and release, and they're in the country. But they did this because they couldn't run up the law enforcement and give up. So I guarantee you the majority of those 2.2 million all need to be removed because I guarantee you they're working in sex trafficking, drug distribution, gangs, some kind of criminal enterprise working with the cartels. Let me just tell you that the numbers between 2 and 4, that's what this administration is focused on. I've sat through many briefs. I just got reappointed to Homeland Security Advisory Council by President Trump as a public safety liaison working in that committee. And let me just say this to you, Sean. The bottom line is they have to go. They're not doing any good for this country. They need to be held accountable. And that's a task in itself. Not the farm workers out there that have been out here for 30 years working on a farm. Those is not what the priority of this administration is. It's the worst of the worst. Mr. Holman has said that numerous times. I support that 100%. And let's not forget the humanitarian side of this by this administration. President Trump, Secretary Noem, and Mr. Holman is the fact that there's 300,000 children that's not being talked about that are missing in this country that came across the border. Tell me the cartel doesn't have a handle on that. They do. They want to locate these kids and make sure they're okay for humanitarian reasons. Nobody's applauding from that. I will.
Do the people in your county want you to be working with the feds? I know that sounds like a simple answer, but so many places around the country, they're having these rallies and saying, we don't want ICE here. What do the people of Arizona think?
I never, well, I shouldn't say never. I seldom get criticized in this county for upholding the rule of law. And people say that to me, Sheriff, we don't want you to do that. Well, go change the law. Right now, I'm going to work with them. It's what I do. It's what I know. It's what I committed. I served in the military prior to being in law enforcement. And the bottom line is it's what I know, and that is to protect our country and communities within. And the bottom line is I don't get criticized down here because people understand who I am, what I stand for. It's not I'm hiding behind a bush or trying to trick people or platforms. No, I've never changed. I don't plan on doing it now.
Sheriff, I want to kind of end with this. When I was meeting with your deputies, I said, what's the one thing that you want that could change? And universally, they all said, I just want to do my job. I want to actually be able to do my job. Do they feel like they can do their job now?
Yes, they do. That's Border Patrol especially, my deputies. I've always been, I believe, empowerment to the lowest level. We train them, we hire their talents, and we give them the tools, the resources, and confidence to go do the job, and that is protect society. And when you take that away from a cop, watch their morale, watch their their spirit go down. And I'm telling you, this is what I saw with Border Patrol and federal agents over the last 4 years. They've been reemployed, as I've called it, doing the job. They're smiling. And let me tell you, when we all work together, this country's so much better off. Yeah.
Last question. If you had to gauge your officers' morale on a scale of 1 to 10 a year ago, what would that number be and what is it now?
I would say you would have a high frustration level because we were taken out of our communities to protect the border, which is a federal problem, but we were doing the federal government's job. We were overworked, overtasked, and that's where the frustration comes from. If you asked it now, I'd say we're at a 9 or 10. There's always going to be that one day that they're back to a 9. But Sean, just so you know, I do a survey every 3 years before I run for office within my internal staff. It's a blind survey. And the reason I do that is if I don't get high satisfaction from my team, I don't run for sheriff. The bottom line, if I'm not serving internally, I can't serve externally. So again, the last one I did, a simple survey, the first question is, you like working at the Cochise County Sheriff's Department? 100% of the people said they did. We're doing something right. And that's because I empower my people that wear a badge and my support staff and my officers in my jail to do the job they were hired to do. I think every politician should do what Mark Dannels is doing. That, to me, that if you couldn't get a passing, I love that. That's such a great thing. If you can't pass it internally, then you shouldn't ask for the voter. I love what you're doing. Sheriff, thanks for everything you're doing to keep not just Arizona, but the rest of the country safe. I appreciate your time and everything that you and the folks down in Cochise County, Arizona are doing for the country. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate what you're doing, too. Take care. Good seeing you. You bet. Good to see you. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.